Thank you, Suzanne.
Welcome.
Good morning, Pro Matchers. Good morning. What a lively group. Now, this weather here in San Francisco has been unseasonably warm. Would you say that? It's been hot is what it's been. And it kind of reminds me of my summers back home. I'm from the Atlanta, Georgia area, and my daughters and I don't get to see each other often. So usually every year we try to come up with some sort of trip where we can get together, spend quality time together. A couple of years ago, we decided we wanted to go on our favorite vacation, a cruise, to the Bahamas. So we get on the cruise, and we've been to the Bahamas many times. And we didn't want to get off and go out into Nassau and see it again. So we decided to stay on the ship during the day while everybody else was out having fun in Nassau. So we're laying around the pool all day long on an all-inclusive cruise, doing what you do in the hot summertime on a cruise where everything, including alcohol, is all-inclusive. When they announced over the intercom, it's time for the Mr. Sexy Legs contest. And I go, I want that job. So I said, well, I am going to use the personal branding techniques that I teach my clients so that they can get ahead and get themselves known out in the world. There's three things you have to know when you're working on personal branding. The first is you have to know your audience. So I looked out in the audience, and I'm a frequent cruiser, so I know what the audience is like, me and my daughters, and I said, okay, I know what the audience is like. The second thing you have to know is your competition. Who are you up against? So I knew what was getting ready to happen. There were going to be 10 people, so I ran over to the 10th spot. I wanted to be able to stand there and watch what everybody else was doing. So we got into the competition, and they started asking anytime you do one of these beauty contest type things, they ask you that all-important question, that intellectual question. So they asked all the guys up there, all these young, virile, masculine men, what is your spirit animal? So I'm listening to my competition again, young, virile, drunk, young men. And I'm listening to them, and they're lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. There was, thank you. Yeah, there was even a liger in there. A lion and a tiger. I have never heard of one. But I'm listening all the way down, and I hear the last one, and I finally think, one of the key things you have to do when you're setting yourself apart in personal branding is you have to be something different and be a little bit more creative and different than your competition. I go, I'm a bunny rabbit. And you know what we're famous for. They loved it, yes. The audience loved it. So then it came time from the in question to the talent competition. They always have a talent competition. I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise ship and watched these competitions, and you get a bunch of drunk young men going and parading their competition of their dances. That's really what they do mostly is dances. They get up there and they start shimmying and shaking. They get up in the judges and they start rubbing on the judges, and I go, that's not me. I'm a little old for that. And I also know my audience. My daughters already told me they don't like that kind of thing. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do something different, something my competition can't do. So a cartwheel, 2 back rolls, 2 splits. What? You don't believe that? You seem to doubt that. I got a raring applause. So then it came to the other competition, the modeling competition, where I get to show off my sexy legs. Now, why do you laugh? You think that's funny? You don't believe it? Well, the other part the third thing you need to know is you need to know yourself. What are your strengths? What do you have that can set you apart from other people? Well, I know at that time that I really had fairly good legs, athletic legs, because like Suzanne said, I had been doing a lot of hiking in the Bay Area hills. I'd been doing a lot of urban hiking around San Francisco, up and down the hills of the streets of San Francisco, and I had fairly decent legs to model. So I did, and my daughter comes running over there and she goes, "Darn, Dad, I didn't realize your legs were so toned and pasty white." So I knew I had a little bit of an edge there, but when you look at the other people, I go, well, I don't know if I actually am qualified for this particular job. So anyway, I'm up there, and we get through that competition, and one of the things you need to think about with personal branding is the use of social media. Social media is a very big key if you're trying to do personal branding. Get your name out there, let people know what your skills are. I had my personal social media department out there. My daughters were running around, hey, you should vote for my dad. He's great, he's really cool. So social media really works, because after all these competitions, they did the judging, and all of a sudden, Tony Woodall was crowned Mr. Sexy Legs 2017. Yeah! So, just so you know, this was me back in 2017. So if you had your doubts, I did too. Have you ever tried out for a job that you thought you were underqualified for? Well, I certainly did if you look at the candidates there, but I did get Mr. Sexy Legs 2017. And sometimes you really feel like you're underqualified for a position. I was the oldest person in that lineup. I was also the heaviest person in that lineup. And, well, that just doesn't usually work when you're being Mr. Sexy Legs. But you don't have to always be the best qualified to get the position that you want to achieve. And I wanted to achieve Mr. Sexy Legs. Now, the great thing about it is I got to walk around the cruise ship for the next few days. Hey, Mr. Sexy Legs! Hey, Mr. Sexy Legs! Because everybody that had a little bit too much to drink on Saturday had to spend Saturday night in their room doing the one thing that is also important in social media, and that's video. Video is key if you want to get recognized, you want to have video. So everybody got to watch me win Mr. Sexy Legs. So I got known as Mr. Sexy Legs on that cruise. That was a turning point in my life. Well, I'll tell you about the turning point later. Many of us have goals. That's the key. I didn't have a goal to be Mr. Sexy Legs when I started out. And many of you have goals. One of them is probably, it sounds like, to get a job. And I've been there. I have been where you are today. I wish they had had an organization like ProMatch in the many times that I was in this particular position. But we all have dreams and goals and things that we want to be. Maybe your dream is to own your own custom home, like my friend Larry. This is his house. Maybe you just want a backyard for your kids to play in. And this is Larry's backyard and his front yard and golf course and everything else. That was his dream. He wanted to own a rival to Bell and Grath Gardens in Birmingham, Alabama. But this was his dream. And you may just want a home and a house. That's all your dream may be, and that's good. We all have dreams. Or maybe you just want to start a family. Maybe you want to have kids. That might be your dream. How many of you like to travel? Anybody here been to Neuschwanstein Castle? Amazing, isn't it? I got to go to Bavaria on a trip paid for by my uncle, Uncle Sam. Everybody? He paid for my trip there, and I got to see Neuschwanstein Castle and all the castles in Bavaria. It was amazing to see that, and I'd love to go back, but there's many other places I want to see. So travel is a dream that many people have and a goal that many people set. Maybe you have been working for years and you've got skills, you've got ideas, you've got a passion that you want to share with the world. You may be thinking, I want to write a book. You want to have a book that you can tell people about your dreams. And that's not necessarily out of the question, because I had that same dream. Last year I published 9 Steps to Successful Goal Achievement. After many years of it lying in my computer folders, it was out there. So I made the decision I wanted to write a book, and I finally achieved that goal. Maybe your dream is to lose weight. Who's that guy on the left, by the way? I have no clue, but he's 300-pound me. I was 300 pounds for 20 years. I was fat. I was out of shape. But I had achieved one of my dreams for my career. As my introduction talks about, I went from the chauffeur seat where I had been driving limousines to the airport, pre-Uber, and I had been seeing all these people that I was taking to the airport as executives and things like that, and I said, I want to be one. I want to get into the C-suite. I want to become a chief executive at a company, or I want to be on that particular board of the organization. So I ended up being on the C-suite as a chief information officer for mortgage companies. So most of you technology people, I understand your plight that you're in at this point if you're working to find a career. I've been there. I've done that. I also, at that point, later on, I ended up being, my position was eliminated, and that's why I wish I'd had a pro match at that time, because I sure could have used it. But now, I went from 300 pounds to what I weighed when I was 30. And I'm in much better shape now than I was when I was 30. And that's all by setting goals. How many here had New Year's resolutions this year? That's good. More people had New Year's resolutions. How's that working out for you? Some of them got it? Okay, good. But the average is about 8% of people who set New Year's resolutions achieve them. Not very many. And there's a reason why. They don't really work in most cases. What you need to do and what we recommend is setting goals. There's a difference between New Year's resolutions. I'm going to tell you how you can set goals today that you can achieve and go forward with your goals in your life. So set goals. I had a lot of goals when I was young, and I wanted to be, basically my sister tells me I had a thing on my mirror when I was younger that says, I want to be rich. Well, I didn't really know what that meant at the time. But, we all have goals, and we want to make sure that we talk about them. We do things properly so that we can achieve those goals. New Year's resolutions don't work for 99.9% of the people, but goals do. So today, I want to talk about setting goals. This is me when I achieved another one of my goals. I received my 5th degree black belt in martial arts there with my grandmaster. But for the time before that, I kept having problems where I could not achieve my goals, no matter what I tried. I even tried doing this thing called SMART goals. Everybody here is familiar with SMART goals. I'm sure in this career, this field, you guys know about SMART goals. What are SMART goals? What are the 5 points of SMART goals? Specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable. That R is the one, a tricky one, because everybody does it differently. And timely or time bound. So would you mind handing that to her? Thank you. So I tried SMART goals, and I could still never achieve my goals. I just couldn't quite get there. SMART goals kind of made me feel dumb, is what it was. I mean, I just couldn't, if these are SMART goals and I can't achieve my goals, I must be pretty dumb. Well, what I found out as going through the martial arts, we started doing some training where we were actually doing energy perception and danger perception. We wanted to be able to feel the negative energy of people who wanted to hurt us. And it's amazing what the mind can do. We did some exercises where we could actually end up reading people's minds. I know that sounds weird, but I actually got to see 3 people and actually visualize them exactly as they looked, the guy sitting across from me in an exercise that we had. Amazing. So I said, there's something with the mind. The mind can do many things. So I started taking classes in hypnosis and hypnotherapy. So I learned, because I wanted to find out, how does that mind work? How does this mind do these things? So I started taking hypnosis, and in that I started learning about the subconscious mind and how that worked. And when I did that, I found out some basic things that all of us need to know. When you're born, your mind is a blank slate. It's empty. And then as we're growing, we start getting knowledge passed to us from our primary caretakers, family, friends of the family, etc. And we start getting information put into our mind. And it becomes what is known, what we call knowns, positive. And I've got negative signs up there, but the important thing to understand is what the mind knows at this time is it's not positive or negative, it's just known behaviors or known beliefs. And this is where our belief systems about ourselves, this is where our story starts. We start learning about ourselves and about what we believe in this period. And this goes on until we're about 8 years old. And in that time, and when you get 8 years old, the mind starts developing a critical mind filter where it starts questioning what it's getting fed. And as it gets fed, after that, it starts thinking, well, wait a minute. You want to do this? You want to become successful? You want to earn more money? Well, it starts looking in your knowns, in its belief systems, and you may have been told at one time as a child that money is the root of all evil. Or you may have been told that, I can only make a certain amount of money because I have not gone to college. I was taught when I was growing up that you cannot be successful unless you get a college degree. And then I was told by my parents many times, you're not college material. Well, my mind, as I was growing up, that's the truth. It just takes that in as this is true. It doesn't know if it's positive or negative. It just takes it as the truth. So what I found out as I'm starting to become a person with goals and trying to be successful, I find out that, well, I'm as successful as I need to be. Our brain is there to protect us. It's not there to make us successful. And it will make you as successful as it knows you are supposed to be. So what it does is it starts blocking those particular requests that you send to it. Well, in hypnosis, that's what hypnosis is. It is going in and giving the subconscious mind and giving the mind enough stimuli so that we break through that critical mind filter. And then through hypnosis, we go through and we put in those positive thoughts that are now positive for us and remove those limiting beliefs. Again, not necessarily negative, but limiting beliefs that we may have had. That's the whole purpose and what happens with hypnosis. So we utilize that to find, how we can change those limiting beliefs in hypnosis. Well, as I started learning this, I started looking back at how I set goals and how I've been taught to set goals with SMART goals and other techniques, and I said, we need to start taking some of these skills that we're using in hypnosis, and our teacher, Dr. John Kappas, he would give us these programs and these things that we could do, and I started putting together a different plan, a different way of setting goals. How many of you have set goals and you start getting down there and you feel like you're running down the field, you're getting there, and all of a sudden you have that goalie jump up there and knock your goal out of the net? How many of you have had that happen? Yeah, many of us. Well, I decided at that time that I do not want our mind to play goalie for the other team. We want to change that behavior. We want to change that so that we can control what our goals are. And because of that, I needed to start working for myself. I wrote it down and I started thinking, well, I need to tell other people about that. So that's what made me decide to write my book, 9 Steps to Successful Goal Achievement. I wanted to share that information with you and everybody else because it's important to go through our lives being able to control our mind. Now, I'm going to talk about the 9 steps. And the first one I'm going to talk about is step number 1, which is write it down. How many here, when you do goal setting and you write them down? Excellent. That's great. I think ProMatch here teaches a lot of the great things that I talk about here tonight, so that is great. But write them down is critical to getting and achieving your goals. Napoleon Hill wrote a book back in 1938, Think and Grow Rich, and at that time he interviewed all the successful people at that time, and he asked every one of them what made them successful. What did they do? Well, one of the top things that every single one of them had was clearly defined, written goals. Goals have to be written down, not just thought about. That's why New Year's resolutions typically don't work for most people. They don't really write them down. They just say, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to be a better person. What is that? You know, what are you telling the mind? What does the mind know? So you want clearly defined written goals. Now, when I was growing up, there was this study from Yale where they had interviewed graduates in 1953, and they asked them what they wanted to be and what their goals were and everything else. 20 years later, they went out and re-interviewed those same people and the rest of the class, and they asked them how they had done, and they found that the majority of the people who wrote their goals down did significantly better on achieving their goals. Well, we found out a few years ago, earlier this 2000s or so, that report never happened. Never happened. It was. I think they also found out that it's the first evidence of fake news. You have to get that in. But said, I use that every motivational speaker I ever talked to and listened to during the time I was growing up. They all said that same Yale study. It never happened. But Dr. Gail Matthews at Dominican University in San Rafael, she heard that same thing because she'd heard about the Yale study. So she said, I'm a psychologist, I'm at a university, we'll do a study. So she did. She did a professional study on goal setting, and she took her team of volunteers, and she found out that you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. 42%. Would you like to increase your odds at anything by 42%? Absolutely. Writing your goals down is one of them. So that's important. She proved that now that actually does work. There are those who wrote their goals accomplished significantly more than those who did not write their goals. So it's now a proven fact, not fake news. Now, the other part that they mentioned is clearly defined written goals. You have to be specific about your goals. It can't be, I want to lose weight. It can't be, I want to be rich. It can't be vague. You want to make sure it's clearly defined. You have to be specific. Everybody loves a good story. What does the story do? It gets you hired, right. Thank you. I had to do it. Your story will get you hired. And there's a reason for stories. Stories are important. You don't want to say, I will weigh 185 pounds on 12/31, because stories are what we learn by. Stories are what our mind processes by. We've been raised on stories for centuries, thousands of centuries, around the campfire, everywhere, but people love stories, and our mind loves stories. When I set my goal in January of 2018 to achieve my goal for losing my weight, I wrote in my goal when I wake up on December 31st and go into my bathroom, I'm going to step on my scale, and I'm going to see 185 on the scale, and I'm going to pump my fist, and I'm going to give a shout out, woohoo! Happy New Year, Happy New You. And I would see that every single time. Now, don't you think that has a bigger impact than I will weigh 185 on 12/31? Yeah. Our mind can see that, and we'll talk more about what we're talking about here, because I'm able to not only see it, I can feel it when I write that goal down like that. The step number 2 is be realistic. Be realistic. Whoops, sorry, I don't want to roll on that. Be realistic is not, don't think about things like, I think we should fly around in an aluminum tube around the world, because that won't happen. I think we should go to the moon, because that won't happen. I think we should, be able to run a mile in less than 4 minutes, though, because that'll never happen. No, I'm not telling you to be that realistic, because everybody knows that those have already happened. And people said that they weren't possible at one point in time. So you don't want to, when I say be realistic, I don't mean don't shoot for the sky. Don't have moonshot examples. Don't have dreams of things that may not be thought about right now or may not be out there, because what you think about can happen. But you want to be realistic. Me setting a goal to lose weight down to 65 pounds that I did in 2018 in 3 months, that was unrealistic. I had to set the right time. And that goes to my next step, set a deadline, and your deadline has to be realistic. You want to make sure that you've got a realistic deadline. Being able to do something, 1,000 of a certain thing by a short period of time may not be feasible. I knew when I started my goal program that I had to give myself time because I was working a full-time job, working on building my business. I knew how much time I had, and I also knew my limiting beliefs that many days I'm not going to want to get my butt over to the gym and do what I need to do. So I have to factor in how long is it going to take me to do that. I also knew how much time it took or how many calories I needed to burn to get down to the weight that I needed and what I was going to have to do for that. So I set a deadline for December 31st, a year away. That was an achievable deadline, part of the SMART goals, achievable and time-bound, timely. A dream with a deadline is a goal. Right? Without a deadline, there's no pressure. So you want to make sure you give your mind and your subconscious a reason and a timeline. The fourth step, and this is one that's very critical, set an action plan. You must have an action plan. We have certain steps for whatever goal you're trying to achieve that you must do. You want to do specific tasks to achieve your goal. You may not know exactly what you're doing initially, but you know some idea of what steps you have to take. So you want to set an action plan. You have to create a plan and then follow that plan. It's important to follow that plan. If you don't, what's the point? So you want to set an action plan. What actions do you have to take to achieve that goal? When I set my goal for my weight loss, I knew I had to, number one, eat less and exercise more. That's my L&M diet that I started. So you can join me on that sometime. But eat less and exercise more. There's a certain amount of calories I have to burn, and I needed to do certain exercises that would burn those calories. So that is the key. A goal without an action is just a wish. The fifth step is measure it, track it. SMART goals say they have to be measurable. Well, that's true, but you also have to measure it and you have to track it. They have to be measurable, but you want to make sure you track it. You want to have a system that you can use to keep track of what your action steps are and your value events so that when you go out there and do that, you can achieve that. Tom Peters, the author of In Search of Excellence, once said that what gets measured gets done, and that's true. You have to measure your goals. Every day you want to track and follow that action plan and make sure you did what you were supposed to do. And this is one of my favorites. Find your why. Why do you want to achieve that goal? Why do you want to be what you want to be? Why do you want to be where you want to be? What is your why? How many people here have a goal? Anybody want to share what your goal is for 2019 this year?
Question.
Yes.
Should that not be the second item?
Should that not be the second item in the steps?
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about steps in a minute. But the steps aren't in order. They're just steps. I try to, what do I call them? But we'll talk about that later. But it's definitely one of the most important ones out there. And we'll talk about that when we get a little bit further. But you have to find your why. Anybody here have a goal this year that they want to achieve and is willing to tell us what your why is?
Be self-sustained by the end of the year because my goal in life is to be autonomous.
Excellent. Very good. All right. Thank you. So find your why. It's very important to understand what motivates you. Many of us have what we call away motivations, where we're motivated by, for finding a job because we don't want to go bankrupt, and that's an away motivation. But what you really want to find is a motivation that's a toward motivation, where instead of staying away from something that you fear or that is bad, you want to have a motivation that will drive you or bring you forward toward your goal. Some sort of feeling. How are you going to feel? What emotion, what feeling are you going to have when you achieve that goal? What is the positive outcome that you're going to have with your goal? Not what are you running away from. So when you're thinking about your why, you want to make sure that it's a positive toward motivation. Number 7, visualize it. When I wrote my goal for losing weight, as you saw me when I'm up here, not only was I saying it, but I was actually feeling it. I was seeing it in my mind that I was getting on that scale. Every morning I got on that scale and I got my arm up there and I go, well, not today, but I'm almost there. So I kept visualizing myself doing that every single day when I got on the scale. You want to see yourself where you are going to be, not where you're at now. You want to visualize yourself as you've achieved that goal. We're all visual people. That's why social media today, every platform uses some sort of images or video, because we are social, or our social media is based on what our mind works, and it works on visualization. And again, storytelling also is important. We visualize, we can tell that story better, our own story, if we can visualize that and see it in our minds. So storytelling, your story gets you what? All right. So, how many here know this guy called Michael Phelps? Absolutely the best swimmer ever. When Michael started training with his coach at 11 years old, his coach started teaching him visualization, started going over in his mind every single day the video and the picture of himself getting up on the platform, the gun being fired, him jumping in the water, swimming to the end, doing a perfect turnaround, heading all the way back and winning that competition in record time. Every single time Michael walked past him on the way to the platform, his coach would tell him, Michael, play the video. Every time he did while he was swimming, he was not concentrating on swimming. He was seeing himself winning in his mind. Play the video. Matthew Walker is a professor at UC Berkeley, and he was talking about that visualization is 50% as effective as physically performing the skills. 50% as effective of changing the neuroplasticity in our mind for a positive benefit. You can play and it can rewire your brain to be positive and to work. There's been studies with basketball players where they've had them do free throws, and they had people that didn't ever practice and didn't really ever throw a free throw. And then they had those who practiced free throws, constantly. And they had a group that all they did, they never threw a ball. They just visualized themselves shooting a free throw perfectly and getting it in every time. After that, the studies proved that the ones who didn't do anything, well, they didn't get many in. Those who practiced and did it, got a lot of them in. Those who did it visually got almost all of them in. And they never shot one free throw. Because the mind can teach you. How many have heard practice makes perfect? It doesn't. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you can get your mind seeing you doing things perfectly, you'll get there. There's other skills you can use along with visualization. One is put yourself in it. This is me riding in a BMW Z4. I had a goal to own the Z4. I loved it. Great drive. That was me in it. And I used to go, when I would achieve action steps, one of my rewards would be to go to do a test drive in a BMW. This was a trip at the BMW Performance Center in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I got to drive BMW Z4s around a racetrack. And so I got to feel and see myself doing it. And then that's Gina. I got her in 2017. Her name's Gina, not for a lady or anything like that. It's goal imagined, now achieved. Is what that is. You have to name your car when you've registered on the BMW site. So, number 8, and this is what set me to success on my goal. In January of 2018, I was turning 60. I was fat, had been fat for 30 years. I said, I'm over this. I have to change. I have to make a commitment. I've tried, I've gone back. I used to be told people to call me Duncan because I was kind of like going up and down like a yo-yo. You've got to be old enough to play with Duncan yo-yos. But, so, make a commitment. That isn't key. What I did is I made myself a promise, and I did a promissory note. I created my own promissory note that said, I will do these tasks, I will do what I need to do to achieve my goal. I promised myself, I dated it, I signed it. Make a commitment to yourself. Write yourself a promissory note. You have to hold yourself accountable. I also recommend finding an accountability partner. This is a great organization. You have success teams. You have mastermind groups. You have teams that support you. You are in the right place. Find an accountability partner, somebody who will support you. One of my colleagues decided she wanted to be my accountability partner. I'm glad she was, because every week or so she would call me and say, how are you doing? Or what are you eating this week? Are you doing exercise? Did you go to the gym? Making sure that I followed my plan. She was completely aware of it. Mastermind groups are great. I'm a member of several mastermind groups. Suzanne and I were in a mastermind group for the Speakers Academy for the NSA. That's how we got to be closer, working together on our goals. And then find a coach sometimes. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees or the trees for the forest, and you got to find somebody. Even the most professional athletes have coaches. So you want to make sure that you get a team that can help you, and this is a great team. When I'm sitting here listening to you guys this morning, I'm just amazed. I wish I would have lived closer. I'd probably be here more often. And the last step on this is reward yourself of the 9 steps. Reward yourself. And you say, why reward myself? Well, number one, habits. We have good habits and bad habits. We want to make sure that we have good rewards. So anytime you do something that you achieve on your action plan, task list, or whatever, you want to make sure that you reward yourself. Even a small reward. Again, when I went on the BMW test drives that I did, that was my reward for achieving one of my action steps that I needed to achieve that goal. Habit loop is key. You've got cues, routines, and rewards. The habits are done to win that reward, whatever it is that you're trying to do. When you have a habit, good or bad, it's to satisfy that reward. What gets measured gets done. What gets measured and fed back gets done better and well. What gets rewarded gets repeated. We want to be rewarded. We want reward. So reward yourself. So those are the 9 steps. Very long set of things to try to remember. And again, not necessarily in the right order. I couldn't think of a SMART or a ProMatch, all these things that, there's mnemonics or whatever. So I just put them in 9. There's not really steps. There's 9 things. I don't want to call it things because you don't do that. But 9 steps. These are things that you need to have when you're setting your goal. But that is kind of complicated. So what I did is I came up with a system for me, because that's a lot of stuff to remember, and I'm getting older and my memory isn't as sharp. So I knew that I had to have a system where I could remember this. So we came up with the 3 pillars of goal-getting success. This will make it easier for you to remember the things that you need to know when you're setting your goals. And we have the what, the how, and the why. Now again, not necessarily, it doesn't matter what order, and I'm going to talk about them here. It doesn't have a specific order. You have to have all of them. I created worksheets that I could use to help me with my goals, because I want to be able to have them written down. I want them to be where I could see them every day so I could have a copy and I could understand what I wanted, why I wanted it, and how I was going to get it. So I created this worksheet and I started filling it out. Now I'm going to tell you, when you're writing your goals down, what I recommend, of course this doesn't have the font I use, so it's not actually showing it. It's normally a cursive font. So you want to write it in cursive. That's not the font that I would normally use, but what I would recommend is you writing it in handwriting, cursive. They don't teach that in schools anymore, but hopefully you guys are old enough where you took cursive writing, or write it in your normal writing schedule, script type language that you do. That's better to do that because it goes through our autonomic nervous system automatically. It bypasses that critical mind filter and goes into our brain, because we don't have to think about writing. We're just writing it. If we're having to with the non-script, it makes it a little more difficult to read. So this may not show on here as well as I would like, but you want to write it down. So what I want you to do real quick, take a minute. I want you to write what your top goal is based on the things I talked about in the 9 steps. I want you to write on your paper there, what is your goal that you're trying to achieve? Your top goal, besides getting a job, obviously, but what is your top goal for 2019? Write that down right now. Try to use these techniques that I talked about. And if anybody has it already in their mind, they've been thinking about this, want to talk about it, yeah, go ahead. Tell us about it.
So after completing my project management certification, I want to do my Scrum Master certification.
Uh-huh.
And I want to
You want to be on stage 10 pounds less. When do you want to be up on the stage 10 pounds less?
By November 27th.
By November 27th. Why do you want to be 10 pounds less?
Just around Thanksgiving, I can enjoy more.
So you want to be 10 pounds less by Thanksgiving so that you can eat more for Thanksgiving.
Change my wardrobe and do everything that I wanted to do for quite some time.
Okay. All right. So what I want you to do is write that down, all that in there, exactly what you're saying. I want to be, you can add that I want to be able to eat more Thanksgiving, because that, what happened is, just to let you know, when I achieved my goal, it wasn't December 31st. I actually achieved my goal September 27th, 3 months early. And I did it because I wanted to be able to eat holiday dinner, but I don't tell anybody that. Yes. Oh, thank you so much.
Very cumbersome.
No, that's all right.
Remember, got lemon in it.
Okay. So don't spit.
To make it
Thank you. All right. Here's your book. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oops, sorry. Thank you. All right. So what I want you to do is write your goals down. What exactly do you want? Be specific. Get that emotion. Get that feeling. If you don't have that emotion and that feeling, try to imagine it. Visualize it so that you can do that when you start reading your goals every day. All right? Visualize it. See yourself achieving that goal. You want to see yourself getting on that scale. And what you weigh? Do you want to say how much you want to weigh, or 10 pounds? 10 pounds less than what she is now. We won't ask. All right. So the next thing is the how. Let's talk about the how. There are certain steps you need to do depending on what your goal is. You want to make sure that you write down what those goals are. So again, you may not know the specifics on the how. We'll get more into that in a little bit. But you want to write down your action plan. Get some idea of what you need to do. And the last step that we want to do is your why. Why do you want to lose weight? This is where you start really thinking. Most of you are familiar with the Ishikawa diagram, the 5 whys. Everybody here probably knows that in the technology industry. You really want to just ask yourself, that's why I was keep asking you, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that? And you can't read this because of the font change, but when I release all of my extra weight and weigh 185 pounds, I will have created a new healthy lifestyle that will allow me to eliminate my diabetic medicine and save me over $300 per month that I can use for traveling to fun places. 300 pounds took me to being type 2 diabetic. I spend over $300 a month on medicines with insurance. I got tired of that. I wanted to get out of that. It wasn't to look good. It wasn't to attract the ladies. It wasn't to do any of that. It was to be healthy and get rid of that damn $300 a month expense that I could use having fun. Well, that's another story, but that's for the next speech. So, write the top why for your goal. I want you to really work on that. When you leave here, you need to find out what your goals are, find out why you really want that goal. Dig deep till you find the real reason. Visualize it and create it. Now, the next step we talked about was tracking and measuring, not just setting it up. You have to track it. So I came up with a worksheet that works for me based on some training that I had, and I really like this. And what we have here is value events. And I want to talk about value events. We talked about the how, and that was just the basic steps and understanding. What I want to talk about is value events. Value events are those things that move you forward in your goal. You don't want to track everything, only those things that work going towards your goal. Watching YouTube cat meme videos does not count towards your goal when you're doing research, on your prospective employers that you might be trying to get. That's one particular action step that you may do. You want to do research on the organization that you're trying to work with. However, watching those videos on cats and things like that is not part of that. So you only want to write value events. And then we also want to put things out here that are important, as I mentioned. So for my action plan, for my weight, I had body weight exercises that I wanted to do, no breads with gluten. Actually, I went to no carbs whatsoever. I got rid of all processed carbs. I did the elliptical. I wanted to do an hour each level. So write down the specific items that are value events that you can do for whatever your goal is. And then you want to have a goal. How many do I need to do to achieve my goal for that day or that week? So you set that up in your goal. Then you have a reward. This is where we reward ourselves. One of the techniques I used was money, because I'm money motivated. I like making money. Most of us do. And we here in the States, and in the world, are kind of money motivated, but you can use other things, but we use money to track our rewards for every action that we did. So each day I pay myself a certain amount of money, imaginary money, while I'm doing that. And you notice that on some events I pay myself more. So an hour or whatever, running or 5 miles, I get paid $200 for each day or week that I do that. All right. For the individual exercises, burpees I pay $25, push-ups 10, squats and other exercises $5 each. Now, why do you ask, do I pay myself more for burpees? Anybody have an idea? Because they're hard. And I hate doing burpees. Who said hard? All right. Burpees are hard. I hate burpees. But they're one of the best exercises because it works the entire body. So you want to pay yourself things for things that are difficult or things that benefit you more for your goal a little bit more. So you track that every day. You put down what I'm going to achieve each day and then what you're due to achieve each day that you have. And you total them up at the end of the day. You total them up on the total, so you get to a total at the end for your daily total of what you achieved. And then you go down to your balance sheet and you have your balance to date, and then each week you're going to total up the next one, the total from the week before to the next week, so that you have an average weekly balance down there for every week. So you're building this mental bank account in your brain so that you know that, oh, I'm achieving things, I'm actually doing things, I'm actually accomplishing the task. I'm setting up new habits is what you're doing, positive habits. So instead of eating when you're stressed and going out like I used to do to what I call tame my tiger, I'd walk around the block to the specialties and buy a cinnamon roll or something like that. That's my walk, you know. And instead, you'll actually go walk around the block a couple times instead of stopping at specialties. So you want to build good habits instead of bad ones. You date it, and then you sign it. Why am I signing it? Ownership, making that commitment, making that promise to myself. So I do that out here, and I do this every day. I fill this out. I go through and make sure that I've done the things that I said I was going to do every single day, every single week, and I keep building that balance, and my mind's going, this guy knows what he's doing. He's starting to accumulate income here. He's doing what he needs to do. It's a good way to change. If you have a limiting belief about your income level, this will help you do that as well. So this system is built to help us track and measure our goals. So start thinking about what kind of value you're going to pay yourself for the different events that you're doing every day. So once you've got that done, you know, the steps are kind of like the foundation of our mind, of our mental work here that we're doing. The action plan that we create, and the what, the why, the how, that's the pillars, the foundation, and the walls and the stabilization for our mind and our body. We want to now work on the roof. We got the foundation, we have the pillars, we want to have a good solid roof to protect our mindset. Mindset is one of the biggest obstacles every day. Many days we get frustrated. Many days we have challenges out there that just make us think, or we have those limiting beliefs that come up, or we get the imposter syndrome or other things out there that just keep us from achieving our goals. We have to watch that. We have to quit listening to the news. We have to quit listening and watching social media. We have to do things to keep our mind straight. So we have to guard our mind, put positive. It's like feeding our bodies. We want to make sure that we feed our mind good things, and we don't want to feed it junk food. So I'm going to recommend 2 different techniques for keeping your mindset, keeping us motivated, keeping us positive. If you know your why, that will help. And as long as you have that, what you want to do is set up a morning routine or a morning ritual. We live by rituals. Many of you already have a morning ritual. I had a morning ritual. I would get up every morning. I'd get my coffee. I'd sit down and read the newspaper, or I'd read my social media. It wasn't getting me anywhere. It was making me negative. Start putting all that negative crap out there. I decided to create myself a morning routine. I'm going to recommend you do one as well. Get up early. That's a good start. You want to get up early. You don't have to get up at 4 o'clock, but yes, I get up at 4 a.m. every morning. 4 a.m. I go to bed anywhere from hopefully 9 o'clock, but typically it's 10 o'clock. I try to get 6 hours of sleep. So the next thing I do when I wake up is I make my bed. Why make your bed? It's the first successful thing I do every day. It's the first task I accomplish, and I know when I come home I have this beautiful bed to get into and relax. So motivational videos. I go onto YouTube and I listen to a motivational video of some sort every day to make sure I do that. Priming. Priming is you make sure you're in your best state. When you're thinking about visualizing your goals and everything, you want to think about where was the best time I was in my life? How did I feel? How did I stand? I want to get up there. And in the morning, you want to get that visual activity of the way you were at your peak state. And I work an exercise where I prime myself till I get into a moment where I'm at my peak, where I start my day in a positive mood, ready to go every single day. I want to smile. I want to make sure I'm happy. I want to make sure that I'm in the mood to do what I need to do. I do some exercise, stretching in the morning, meditation. I have a gratitude journal that I write in. But whatever you need to do to stay motivated, it doesn't have to be my morning routine. But I do recommend you get up early and make your bed if you can. If you've got a partner or spouse in there and they're still in bed, you just make it up over them. But anyhow, I'm doing it for you, dear. The second one is not after you've started your day, you want to end your day properly. I recommend the magic 30 minutes. I call it that. It's the last 30 minutes before you go to sleep at night. And by that, I mean go to sleep at night, not the last 30 minutes before you're in bed. We don't know what you want to do when you're in bed, but before you go to sleep, within the last 30 minutes, this is when you want to calculate your successes. This is where you want to fill out your sheet with the amount of, when you're tracking yourself on your goals, on your action plan. You want to track that and add those totals up right before you go to bed. The last 30 minutes before you go to sleep is the time where you're most suggestible, where your mind is about to go into a REM sleep and into that state. You're the most suggestible. This is the right time to do it. Also, write down happenings. Write down everything good that happened to you that day. Don't write anything bad. Just keep writing every single thing that you think was good. And then also affirmations. Write down, what do I want to be? What is your goal? Write down, what do I want to be? I want to be the best speaker that I can be and give the best value to my audience. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can make your affirmations there. And then you're going to go to sleep. And you're going to dream, and you're going to start processing that in your mind. It's going into your subconscious mind. Overcoming that critical mind filter, you'll be able to set that up. Step 0. Speaking of order, one of my friends saw those 9 steps, and she goes, that's a lot of steps. None of that really matters. The main step is you have to take action. If you don't do something, if you don't start something, if you don't take the action, the rest of them don't work. Well, I go, well, I can't add a 10th step. I got 9 steps to successful goal achievement. I'd have to rewrite the book. I'd have to do all that, I can't have this extra step, but I didn't put it in there. I didn't put action in there because we assume that that's the case. So I said, well, let's just make that step 0, folks, because without action, if you don't take that first step, you've got a lot of steps, not just 9, but a lot of things in life you're going to have to think about doing and you're going to want to do and achieve. If you don't take that first step, if you don't take action, you're just going to be standing there staring at your steps. So let's all go out there and begin achieving your goals. And by begin, take action, massive action. Do what you need to do to achieve your goals. Set up your action plan, follow your action plan, and let's be successful. I gave you a handout, or Suzanne did. I've got these goal-getting worksheets that I showed you here. If you'd like a copy, put a check on the box, your email. I'll email you a copy of those. You can then print them off however many you want. I have instructions on there as well. 30-minute strategy call if you want to talk about your goals and what a goal for this year that you're working for the rest of the year, or any help on achieving your current goal that you're working on now. I'll be glad to offer some suggestions. Referrals, if you know anybody who would like to have my speech or have me talk, let me know. There's also a place on there, I would love your feedback. What did you think of the program? I would love to get as much of that. If you have a testimonial, please write that down and share that with me as well. I'll pick them up at the back as we're leaving. I also have a website for you. You can go to motivatedactionmedia.com/ProMatch, and there's a / after the ProMatch too, I think I forgot to put on here. But that, you can take that and go to that website there. You can actually sign up and get the worksheets from there as well. I'll have other things I may post out there for you as well. But there's that website for you to go out there and find out more. So you can find me, Tony Woodall. There's my phone number. I'm on Instagram as Tony Woodall Speaker. I'm on LinkedIn. You might have seen me out there being, close by here. MotivatedActionGroup.com or MotivatedActionMedia.com. I do coaching and corporate consulting, and I really want to thank everybody out here. Again, I feel where you're at because I've been there many times myself. I've been in the information technology field. I've been in a lot of different things, and I've been without work. So I know what that's like. Thank you, Suzanne, for suggesting that I come in. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody. I'll be outside. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer your questions for you, talk with you about anything. Okay. And that's it.